Welcome to the AFGHANEYE YouTube channel. If this is your first visit, make sure to subscribe and press the notification bell so that you won't miss any of our new videos. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another AFGHANEYE Live. I'm your host Sangar Paikar.
And I'm ahmed-waleed Kakar.
Welcome everyone to this very special live stream as we discuss our latest project, the AFGHANEYE documentary, our first ever documentary. A huge step for Waleed and I. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big step.
Yeah, guys, everyone who is in the chat, could you please share the link with everyone? Share it far and wide as we will go into detail about this project, what we are going to do, why we are actually doing this documentary. Everything that you need to know will be discussed today. We will try to share as much as possible with you guys. So make sure that you invite everyone to join us. I'm going to share the link as well. So Waleed, what have you been doing so far today?
The usual work, and now this. I'm also sharing the link as well, so sorry if I'm not that engaged for the time being. Sangar, just give me a second, yeah?
Yeah. Guys, welcome to the chat. Welcome all. And we are happy to have you today with us as we discuss the AFGHANEYE documentary project, a very exciting new development. So Waleed is off screen for a moment. So if you guys like to share the link with everyone, invite as many people as possible, ask questions about the documentary, everything you want to know. Obviously, we cannot reveal everything. We have to keep it a little bit secretive, but everything that we can share, we will share with you today. So ask as many questions as you like. And if you have any other people who are interested or would like to know more about this project, just invite them and allow them to ask their questions as well. Welcome back, Ahmed-waleed.
Thank you very much, Sangar. So, should we get started? Do you want to tweet? Have you tweeted out the link, Sangar?
I have. Okay. While you were gone, I tweeted the link. Unfortunately, we are not very active on Facebook, but we are active on Instagram. We can't be very active on Facebook because of their ridiculous policies.
Yeah, unfortunately not. By the way, guys, for the 13 people so far that are watching, can we get more likes? Sorry, I just waved my comb at the screen. But you know, we've got 12, 13, 14 people watching, not as many likes. So I'm going to request everyone to please like the video, tweet out the link as well on Twitter, because we're going to be starting shortly discussing our latest project, which is a
I'm going to also wave with
Afghani.
something so that people start liking. Like this video.
So that yeah, so that people you know, we're going to be talking about our documentary soon, which is our latest project, which is something that we've discussed and we've now so HSC is saying there's so much to talk about Afghanistan. Any hints about what you'll focus on? Yes, we're going to be focusing on our documentary, which we shall be filming, inshallah ta'ala, in 2022.
I think what HSC is asking is what are you going to focus on in the documentary?
Okay, yeah, sorry, I've had a long day at work, so I'm not the most alert, or as alert as I would like to be. So thank you for pointing that out, Sangar. But yeah, please tweet out the link, guys, and we will be getting started soon, inshallah.
Yes. Oh, this is such an exciting moment. I mean, you know, we wanted to do something like that for quite a while, but now we're going to actually do this.
Damn, that is one big bottle, Sangar.
I've had 2 consecutive hours of boxing today. I am totally I lost all the water in my body. I am very dehydrated. But yeah, if you're going to shoot a documentary in Afghanistan, you have to be fit. You have to be in top condition, because we will be running around and we will need to carry our equipment, dodge bullets, whatnot. So you have to be fit. So that's why. Ever since we launched this project, I've been going to the gym like an idiot.
Okay, sure. So should we get started?
Let's go. Okay, so everyone, welcome to another AFGHANEYE Live. We are going to discuss this documentary project that we have announced, and I must say, you know, Waleed and I, we have been talking to each other about everything that we wanted to do. We wanted to start the podcast. When Waleed launched AFGHANEYE, I came along and said, let's start a podcast, let's do this, let's do that. We wanted to travel around Europe, meet Afghans, interview people, make short reports with the Afghan community here in Europe and UK. We couldn't do that because of the COVID restrictions and our job responsibility, everything. We wanted to travel to Afghanistan, but then there were a lot of problems, a lot of issues, regime change, many issues that made it very difficult for us. So we couldn't. But we have finally decided that we should go in 2022. And this is something that is we already wanted to do this quite a long time ago, but we are finally going to do that in 2022. So this is why we announced the project, and we announced that we are going to raise all the funds that we need to finance the whole project. Now, a proper professional documentary, you can go and do your research online and see, you know, those documentaries you see on Netflix and other places. When they produce those documentaries, they invest hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, dollars, maybe in the millions, because they have a director, they have a photographer, they have a whole crew of camera people, audio, lights, security. They have their editors, and they have even composers who compose music for them, everything. That's how those proper documentaries are made. But here at the Afghan Eye, it's a two-man show. So Ahmed
Sorry
Waleed.
to let you down.
Yeah, so it's Ahmed-waleed Kakar and myself. We are doing everything by ourselves. So we are going to be the ones who are doing the shooting. We are going to be sound engineers. We are going to be the ones who are making sure that audio and video is, all in like proper audio and video, synchronized. We are also going to write the script for the documentary. So what are we going to do? What were we going to? Who are we going to interview? Where are we going to? What kind of shots? What kind of imagery? What kind of style we're going to use? Everything, the whole project, all the way up to editing and producing the project. It's just two of us, Ahmed-waleed Kakar and me. And we will also get some help and assistance from our friends, people who are part of the Afghan Eye community now, people who have approached me personally. They have offered their help. We have a legal advisor. We have a editor, a graphics expert. We have so many people who have stepped up and said, if you guys are going to do this, we're going to help you. But the most exciting thing, I think, Waleed, what was your reaction when you found out that we have collected so much money in just 3 days?
No, I wouldn't say. No, I wouldn't actually. I take back the word shock, because that would imply that I'm not used to people supporting us.
Yeah.
People. I mean, this mic that you're seeing here, this wire, right? It all came from people support the webcam.
Yeah.
So it's not like people supporting us is something unusual. But I was more so surprised because like you said, the big shots, they spend millions on these documentaries, and what the figure that we've arrived at is a modest, relatively modest sum, but still to the layman it looks like a lot of money. So I was very surprised that people answered the call so quickly. I was sort of expecting there to be more scrutiny of the figure that we cited, but apparently not.
Okay, so maybe for our audience, for the guys who are interested in knowing why we need the £20,000, I am willing to break down the entire budget. So Waleed, if you can just ask me questions, or if you can read the questions in the chat, and I will explain.
Okay.
Yeah, so first of all, carry on, just go.
Okay. So why £20,000, Tangad?
Okay, so the £20,000, first of all, half of it is just equipment. Okay? So when we talk about equipment, what we need is, first of all, it's going to be a documentary, it's going to be visual, so you need proper cameras. Now, there are all sorts of cameras that you can use. You can even make a documentary with your mobile phone. But we decided to use a full frame camera, which means that a normal consumer grade camera when you look through the lens, the whole picture is like this. But a full frame camera is much bigger. So for instance, if you are in a narrow street, in a narrow small street, and you have a small consumer grade camera and you want to shoot the narrow street, and you want to get the whole frame, the whole street in the frame, it's not possible because smaller cameras have a smaller frame. They're like 1/3 of a full frame camera. But professionals, they use full frame cameras. So when you have a full frame camera and you direct it at a small street, you can have from one wall to the other wall everything in your frame. And this is necessary because we're not making small YouTube clips. This is something that is going to be made so that for a bigger audience and on multiple platforms. So people from multiple platforms need to be able to watch this documentary. So you need a full frame camera. Now, a proper full frame camera used by professionals, people who make documentaries for Netflix or the BBC or whatever, they use a camera that is about 12, 13 to 20,000 pounds. It's just the body, including the lenses and everything. That's the standard. But this camera that we're going to use is a Sony A7 compact. It's a compact camera. It means that it does all the tricks of the bigger Sony A7, but it's in a smaller body. But the video quality is going to be like cinematic. It's a really high quality camera. So for those who are interested, yes, just 1 second. For those who are interested, go to YouTube and look around and see what Sony A7C is like and what kind of video they make with that camera, and then you will understand why we have decided to use this camera. Yes, ask your question, please.
So first of all, I think it's worthy of noting that T.A is angry with you because you're not being very inclusive, Sankar. You keep saying guys and not guys and girls. So I think you should seriously.
But the guys thing is
collective.
It's gender neutral, and I don't know if you're aware of that T.A, but I am from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands, when we speak English, which is often referred to as Dinglish, is Dutch English, we tend to use certain words and phrases in a way that may sound very weird and unusual, but it's because
it doesn't sound weird. It's just it sounds very patriarchal. So if we could be more inclusive.
Okay, guys and girls. Yes, guys and girls. Okay. Yes. Okay, carry on. What was the next question?
So Commandant is saying rent everything, which leads to another question. Why are you purchasing the equipment and not renting it? And Elmo 4004 is asking, is the equipment being bought with future projects in mind as well?
Bingo. Okay, so Commandant Saib, you said why not rent everything? So you see, this whole project is only the beginning, okay? We are going to travel to Afghanistan to shoot a documentary for the first time. This first documentary is going to be one in many documentaries, inshallah, that we are going to produce. And that's why we need to have our equipment, just like we have these very nice microphones and all this equipment that is purchased by you guys. You guys paid for all of this. We are not going to just make a documentary and then put the camera away and let it collect dust. That's not what we are going to do. This is going to be only the first project. Once we start doing this, just to explain to all of you, we have never traveled to Afghanistan to shoot a documentary. We have never done this before. I have some experience producing videos, etc., but I've never been to Afghanistan for shooting a documentary. So this is the first ever project that Waleed and we are doing. It's going to be the first time we're going to travel actually together. So very exciting. But we will not stop at just one documentary. We want to do many documentaries, and that's why we need to have an equipment, the whole thing, the whole setup. Plus, there's something else. We also want to make, those YouTube videos where you have a talking head, someone who's explains something about history or economics or politics.
I wonder who you have in mind.
Yeah, so we will make those videos explaining stuff, but for the talking head we cannot use these cameras, okay? These live stream cameras are not suitable for making those videos, so we need a proper camera, and we will use those cameras for multiple purposes, not just one. So it's
Okay.
a major investment. It's a major investment for the future of AFGHANEYE.
Okay, sure. So TA has said, haha, it's cool. Don't worry, guys. Thank you, though. Well, given that you're using guys, you're actually assuming both of our genders, which I'm not sure about Sangad, but I'm very offended about. But so there's a Vlad is asking a question. He's saying, a question for you both. Does zina take place in Afghanistan? Do young people have some form of non-marital type of relations? I'm assuming he means fornication.
Yes.
Some say yes, some deny it. What do you know? I would say Vlad, I recall in one of the earlier live streams, you also asked about Sangar's relationship status, and you asked about
yours as
my you asked about my relationship status as well. So I appreciate the interest in I don't know what to say, conjugal relations, but I'm sure that in Afghanistan, yeah, it's inevitable that wherever people are, even in light of sort of religious injunctions, people will fornicate. Some people may be adulterous, philanderers, but I can't give you any statistics, I'm afraid.
And to disappoint you, Vlad, the documentary is not about sexuality and extramarital relations, so
or heteronormativity or anything of
yes,
the sort. So
we're
Vlad,
sorry to disappoint you.
Vlad is also asking an important question for Waleed the historian. Why was Abdurrahman Khan against modern technology like trains, telegraph, post office, etc.? Well, I would say that Abdurrahman Khan was actually right. Okay, and I don't really like Abdurrahman Khan. It doesn't need to be said. My family history with him is known. But Abdurrahman Khan opposed the extension of train lines to Afghanistan and the building of roads, because he said that these could potentially be used to facilitate the invasion of Afghanistan. And as Abdurrahman Khan put it, Afghanistan's inaccessibility and remoteness from the world was its greatest defense. Now, fast forward to 1979, when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, what did they use? They used the Salang Pass, which they had built. So in a way, Abdurrahman Khan was right. So he prioritized the independence of his kingdom over the integration of Afghanistan with the world economy and its commercial development. The rest is up for everyone else to decide. Fanny Helen is asking, why aren't you putting out new podcast episodes? Well, the reality with podcasts, it's a good question. The reality with podcasts is that Sangar mentioned earlier, regime change. Since about early August, our worlds as Afghans turned upside down, which required us at the AFGHANEYE, and as Sangar mentioned, it's a two-man show. Sorry to disappoint. But we weren't able to focus on all of the things we wanted to focus on because of everything that was unfolding. And that is a status quo that persists as I speak. And that is also the reason why we're also we've decided, and when we inshallah ta'ala will be going to record a documentary. So it's not that we're never recording a podcast ever again. We will inshallah ta'ala, but as freelancers, a two-man show, there's only so much capacity we have sort of within our timetable to be able to produce content, and the lion's share of that content is live streams as well as articles. But we'll be back with the podcasts. um Michelle is asking, did you require any special permission to film or get into the country? No, we did not. Uh, you know, what happens there, but we are not aware of any restrictions on filming, and we will film accordingly. Um, Vlad is saying thank you for the answers. We're happy to answer your questions. Elmo is asking, are you going to Peshawar? We are not going to Peshawar, perhaps some other day, but not this time. Omar Taslim, who has a picture of the Iraqi flag under Saddam Hussein as his profile picture, is asking, can you guys just start selling our new flag? Because that would be awesome. Whether it's awesome or not is your personal opinion, but we're not sort of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan online shop.
Yes.
So I'm afraid you're gonna have to get your flags from somewhere else.
But actually, those flags are being sold here in the Netherlands for the last 20 years. There is this bazaar in Beverwijk here in the Netherlands. They have these all Islamic stands with all the Islamic paraphernalia, and they sell those white Imara flags, which is also used by Hizb ut-Tahrir. They also use the same white flag, and up until 2015 they also used to sell the black flag with the seal of the Prophet on it. But that flag was claimed by Daesh, and that's why that flag is now banned. So you cannot sell that flag anymore. But the white flag of the Shahada flag is still being sold here. I think you can, those things are widely available all around the world. So I don't know why you're asking us to sell those things. You want us to get in trouble?
So Vlad is asking, will the Taliban try talking to Iran, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Pakistan to establish a railway network for better economy, since nobody will invade Afghanistan for the next 50 years? I would say that's a feasible prediction to make. AGT is asking, do you need vaccinations to travel and film? Not that I'm aware of. Fanny Helen is saying
I have investigated that. Last time you were in Afghanistan, it was in 2017, right?
Sorry, yeah. What did you, it was in
Last
2017.
Yeah. Were you vaccinated?
Oh.
Okay. Well, a friend of ours.
I was told that the best way to avoid illness in Afghanistan is to have a raw onion upon arrival, and it works. Trust me, it works.
All right, but in any ways, I would definitely advise people who are traveling to Afghanistan to get vaccinated, because you might get certain diseases, especially related to your bowels, etc. So make sure that you consult your doctor.
Inshallah ta'ala. Fanny Helen is saying you could have turned some of the live streams into podcasts. The 100 Days Live was really good, and I would listen to this again as a podcast. We will, inshallah ta'ala, upload all of those as podcasts. But yeah, guys, if we could, if there are any other questions with regard to the documentary specifically, that would probably be more welcome.
We have made time to answer questions. So guys, if you have questions about the documentary, please ask. In the meantime, I want to just continue with what I was talking about, the £20,000. So first of all, the cameras, 2 cameras that we're going to buy together they will be about £3,500, just the two cameras. So about £3,500 is just buying the cameras. Then if you are going to use a proper camera, you need to also have a proper lens. So for these cameras, you can buy all sorts of lenses. We have opted for a lens that is very versatile. So it's a lens. It's not even the most expensive type of lens, because the more expensive brands, they would be up to £2,000, £3,000, but we're going to use one that is about £800. So two lenses together with two cameras. Each lens is about £800. So let's say about £1,600 is going to be just the lenses. Then you also need a filter. You have to put a filter on your lens when you're filming outside, because the light will go into the lens, and then you will get some of these distorted videos where everything looks too white or too bland. So that's why you need to have a filter, and we are going to get really high quality filters, and those filters are about £250 each, which is not cheap. But yeah, so if you look at the rest of the list of the equipment, it's all on our website. If you go to the afghaneye.org, go to the link, the AFGHANEYE documentary project, and the exact costs of all the equipment that we are going to need are mentioned there. The exact model number of all the equipment that we are buying, everything is mentioned there. You can go look all those equipment for yourself. You can watch reviews online, read about this equipment, and then you will find out why we have selected these items. So altogether, the equipment will be around £10,000. Okay? And
now, another question.
Yes.
We'll get on to the other part in a bit.
Yeah.
Do you have a predicted release date for the documentary?
No, we don't have a predicted release date. And the reason for that is, first, we need to collect all the money that we need to finance this project. We need to have the equipment. We need to go travel to Afghanistan, do the shooting, and then come back, edit everything, produce the whole thing, and then once it's completed, then we can once we have finished shooting the documentary, then we can sort of predict when we can produce it and publish it. But
okay,
that's something that we cannot answer at this moment.
Okay, TA is asking, do you know which cities you will visit, and which month are you guys/girls leaving?
Well, the exact date of our departure will be announced as soon as we have raised the money that we need to go. Mm-hmm. So when we have the entire budget that we need to go, then we will book the tickets and let you guys know that's when we are leaving. But as long as we haven't collected the money, we can't go and book a flight because it makes more sense.
We won't have the equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
Elmo4004 is asking, have you guys lined up interviews with politicians, officials? I'll answer that. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Vlad is saying maybe you could meet up with the Hazara Nur Muhammad for a documentary. He's YouTube famous for helping tourists with travel in Afghanistan and having the know-how as well. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I would say we don't really need the help in terms of getting around, because I wouldn't really say we're tourists, but you know, meeting him would not be a bad idea either. Hassan Hafiz is asking another question, Sengar. Sorry, I mean, I think this is his first question. Is the documentary free to watch, or will there be a paywall?
Okay, so We are currently in a situation where we have to consult with our legal advisor about how we are going to publish the documentary. Okay? Obviously, people who have contributed to the production of the documentary, people who have raised the funds with us, people who have donated, they will have free access to the documentary, and at some point the documentary will be freely available online. But before we reach that moment, we need to consult our legal advisor, and we need to discuss the details of how we're going to publish it, under what conditions, where. All these matters need to be sorted out, and for that purpose we are currently talking to someone who is helping us, but as soon as we have more details, we will share that with you. This whole project has been something that has been in development. We have announced that we are going to do it now, and this is something that we're doing together as a community. You're our viewers and listeners, our contributors. So as we progress towards actually launching this whole project and basically publishing the documentary, along the way we will share as much information as possible with you guys about what we're going to do, how we're going to publish it. So you will receive updates from us regularly. It's not going to be something that is all secretive.
Okay. Criteria Good Manners is asking, what's the documentary about? Specific field.
Okay, so as you guys are aware, after the fall of the regime in Afghanistan, we have a new situation in Afghanistan where the country is under economic sanctions. The money of the Afghan central bank is frozen. If suppose you want to help your relatives in Afghanistan, or if you want to help someone and you want to send money to them through your bank account, you can't. There are limitations. A friend of mine here in the Netherlands, he donated 50 euros. 50 euros he donated to a charity that is sending money to Afghanistan. And he wrote in the description for that 50 euros donation, he wrote, to help Afghanistan. And his bank contacted him and asked him, why are you sending money to Afghanistan? Okay? So this is the kind of situation we are right now in Afghanistan. A country of more than 30 million people who have suffered 43 years of war, and the United States and their allies, they have decided that they should leave. They left Afghanistan. Now the Taliban are in power. So the people in Afghanistan are being basically collectively punished. They are starving. They are facing starvation because of the failures of the international community in the last 20 years. And this has created a dire situation for Afghans. What we are going to do as two Afghans, as two freelance journalists, is go there and get as comprehensive as possible picture of what is going on, how are people dealing with this situation, what are the solutions, and what can we do collectively to help people. We have to go there and we have to see everything with our own eyes. We have to talk to people who are actually enduring all this. And we have to go to different parts of the country, because right now what you see, and this has been the case for the last 20 years, is that all these foreign journalists, whether it's BBC or CNN or whatnot, they are airlifted into Kabul with a fixer who speaks English. They just run around here and there, talk with one or two people, and then they publish that, and that's basically all that there is in Afghanistan. Well, that's not the whole picture. That's not a comprehensive picture of Afghanistan. Obviously, we cannot make a documentary that describes everything. We can't do that. But what we can do is make a documentary where we shed light on matters that are not properly covered. We want to go into details in certain matters in rural Afghanistan that are not being covered, and matters that are vital for us to understand what this current economic sanction and current economic crisis and financial crisis in Afghanistan, what does it mean for people in Afghanistan? So basically, that's the whole idea behind this documentary.
Okay, I think you answered the following question as well, which is, what kind of story are you looking to tell? What do you hope to achieve? From Michelle. Let me see. If you get the chance, please interview Bashar Dost. I'm really curious about him. Why not? Vlad is asking, won't the Taliban think you're pro-Republican or try to spy on the ground since you're not part of a major media outlet? I don't think they would, to be honest. I think the Republic is dead and gone. And if anyone sort of knows of us, they'll know that we always were pretty consistent in calling the Republic itself an artificial sort of entity imposed by foreign guns and money. Omar Taslim is saying, I'd love you guys to collaborate with IBR AFG YouTuber from Saripul and Mr. Nut from Helmand. HSC is saying, I would love to see interviews with Anas Haqqani and Abdul Qahar Balkhi. While HSC, you may be in for a surprise, because I think the interview with Anas Haqqani is something that's already been done by myself. It's my pinned tweet on my Twitter profile. And Yalda Hakim also interviewed him a couple of months later. That interview is somewhere there. TA is asking, aren't you afraid about your own safety? Personally, I'm not. Sangat, are you afraid for your own safety?
I would say it would be foolish not to fear.
I mean,
I think
I'm bored. I'm bored of being scared for my safety.
No. Listen. The thing is that security in Afghanistan is obviously not as it was 3 months ago. Okay, 3 months ago, if you would land in Kabul, at Kabul airport, if you take a cab and go anywhere, chances are that you are going to be followed, and people will assume, because since you come from a different country, you must be loaded with cash. And a lot of people were robbed, intimidated. A lot of these problems happened. It was the norm. Like every day there were like hundreds of such incidents in Kabul. So now the situation is different. There is less crime, but it's not like Afghanistan is 100% safe. There are incidents. There are very serious incidents. There was a bombing in a masjid on a Friday in Kunduz. More than 100 people died. There was another bombing in Kandahar. Again, I don't know how many, but I think it was more than 100 people who died. These incidents happen. There is not Afghanistan is not a war zone anymore, but there are incidents, there are issues, so we are going to be careful. We're not going to be there just let our hair loose and we're going to be very careful. Obviously, if we were scared, we wouldn't go there. We're not scared, we're going there, but we are going to be very cautious and very careful and avoid trouble.
So can you guys make some short clips on historical locations like Salang, Darlaman, and so on and so forth? Yeah, if it's feasible, why not? How are the donations looking at? When will you guys reach your donations goal? Well, that depends on you, the viewers, the listeners, the followers on Twitter, the subscribers. That depends entirely on you. AGT says, how do you accredit yourself? Via press card of AE or International Press Organization or Sangad? How do you accredit
Okay.
yourself?
Okay. So, uh, to explain something to you guys, in most countries, as an independent journalist, you can become a member of the Guild of Journalists. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get that membership here in the Netherlands. As a freelancer, I can go and get that membership, and they will represent me if I get in any sort of legal trouble. Okay, so that's one option. I don't know about UK, but you should really consider that as well. But if is it really necessary in Afghanistan? Well, you see, we know of many other journalists who traveled to Afghanistan recently, and as long as you get from I think it's the Ministry of Information and Culture, they provide you with a piece of paper which is a sort of stamp of approval that you are freely allowed to go anywhere you want. So at every checkpoint where there are security service people, they will investigate you if you are traveling in a car with equipment, etc. And as long as you have that paper, then you can move around freely. So we have in Afghanistan like 50 TV channels, all these journalists, and then you have all these dozens of other international journalists, media operatives, photographers, and whatnot. They're all just traveling around the country. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean that you have to have some sort of special.
Permit.
Yeah. Everyone is allowed to do their work, and the only thing is that the security is very tight because you have Daesh. They are transporting explosive from one place to other places, so that's why every vehicle is being checked everywhere. So when they stop you, they will ask you what is your business. So you have to have some sort of documentation, but it's not a big deal. It's quite easy actually.
So Vlad is asking, Walid Jan, what do you know about the old wooden Armenian church in Balaisar Fort in Kabul and the Church of the Eastern Bishopric in Herat? Will the Taliban preserve the Jewish, Hindu, Sikh history? I don't actually know about the Armenian church in Balaisar, but Balaisar was blown up by the British in 1880 because they were annoyed that their soldiers were killed. Funny fact, Sangar. My ancestor was actually given a room and accommodation in Balaisar because he was the personal tutor of the Crown Prince Abdullah Jan, the son of Sher Ali. It was the same ancestor that was later beheaded by Abdurrahman Khan. So yeah, maybe in his time, the Armenian church in Kabul, in Balaisar, would have been in a better sort of situation. But yeah, there was an Armenian community in Kabul, but I think that's a thing of the past. But will the Taliban preserve the heritage? I believe they will sort of preserve some buildings as museums or historical sites. Or so on and so forth. Will you try to link up with local bloggers to get easy access to people and places? It's not impossible, but I would say unlikely because we'll be there on a tight schedule and we don't, alhamdulillah, I wouldn't say we have a problem with access or familiarity and so on and so forth. How long will you stay in Afghanistan for the documentary? So far, we haven't decided yet, but we're looking at about 1 to 2 weeks. HSE is saying there's 2 female vloggers you have previously tweeted about which offer a valuable female perspective, as would people like Bibi Janay from Twitter. I agree. Hikmat J is saying, not sure if this was answered, but will you be freelancing the filming, editing, or taking some sort of camera crew with you? We have answered it, but I'm going to assume that you weren't here, Hikmat. So no, we're going to be doing everything ourselves. Writing scripts, editing, lighting, everything will be done by us. What are your personal opinions about the Taliban? That's not really topic for discussion, but how do we go about answering this without everyone asking the questions henceforth on the Taliban alone? My personal opinions on the Taliban are, I don't even know, it's such a vague question. They are currently an insurgency trying to transition into government. They're doing some good stuff. They're screwing up some other stuff. But I'm not, if the question is sort of geared toward me and my attitude toward armed resistance against them, I think that's stupid. I think they are the only hope that Afghanistan has. So, for better or worse, what would you say, Sanjay?
I would say that we are not card-carrying members of the Taliban, if that's what you want to know. What we do believe is that the Taliban as a movement in Afghanistan has emerged as a consequence of certain historic developments. We have discussed that at length on our podcasts and live streams. And Afghanistan is in a situation where we don't have options, okay? It's like here in the Netherlands, okay? After the World War II, basically this country was at peace at all times. Since 1945, there was peace in this country, in the Netherlands. Now they have here a few Christian parties, Christian Democrats. You have liberal Democrats. You have classical liberal sort of right-wing parties, and you have populist parties, and they have elections every year, and people have options here. They have options. They can vote, and they can say, you know what, this party, we don't like it, we want something else. In Afghanistan, we don't have options. We have a landlocked country that has been at war for almost 50 years now. It's 43 years, but some instability started even earlier. And the only entity that is now providing security in Afghanistan for people are the Taliban. They are in power. And they're doing a lot of things that we disapprove. We don't like that. We would like to see that changed. But what is the alternative? Again, having war? Going back to war?
Support the NRF.
Yeah, support the NRF, buy T-shirts and whatnot. But the reality is that we as Afghans, we do not have the luxury of saying, you know what, I don't like this, I want something else. So what we prefer is stability and security so that people in Afghanistan can finally breathe, so that they can live a normal life. And in order to do that, you need to have security, you need to have peace. And these people who are now in power, we hope that they change, that the things that they are doing that we disapprove, that they stop doing that. But until then, we have no other options. So
doesn't that make you a terrorist sympathizer?
If that's the definition, I can't change. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do about it. People are entitled to have their opinion and say whatever they want. But what I have just explained, this is my stance, and yeah.
Wallahu alam. Okay, Waleed, what is the percentage of Shia Pashtuns? Are the Qizilbash people Turkmen Shia somehow? I heard the Shia Twelvers and Nizaris are more liberal in Afghanistan. Is it true or bollocks? The percentage of Shia Pashtuns is actually very small. I think the only Pashtun tribe that is almost uniformly Shia are the Turi, who live next to Paktia in Kuram, right? I believe some Bangash.
It's actually Khost. It's Kuram is the other side of Khost.
So, and yeah, I think some Bangash are also Shia. The Qizilbash people
and there are some Orakzai who are also Shia.
Yeah.
And interesting story, there is a guy from our tribe, from our sub-tribe of the Ahmed-waleed. He was a Khan who migrated to Qurm, and he settled in Qurm, and he has converted to Shiism. So
Okay.
during the 1980s, when all these mujahideen traveled across the Durand line, because those mujahideen camps were along the Durand line in Qurm, etc., some people from our community, they were there as well. And those Shia Pashtuns, they said, "Where are you from?" And they said, "From there and there." And they said, "From which tribe are you?" And they said, "From this and that." And they said, "Oh, one of your cousin lives here. He has converted to Shiism." So there's also one guy from our tribe who is Shia.
Yeah, fair enough. Are the Qizilbash people Turkmen Shia somehow? Yes, they are. So the Qizilbash were basically the royal guard of I think Qizilbash itself means red hats in Turkish. So they were basically Turkic Shia, and they came, I believe, in the invasion of Nadir Shah, and they settled permanently in places around Kandahar and in Kabul. And later on, they went on to form the royal guard of various Durrani monarchs. So this is an interesting one, saying because we're often told that the story since 1947 is a story of wholesale Pashtun domination of others. But in fact, the Qizilbash were relied upon by the Durrani monarchs to provide a counterweight to the Pashtun tribes because they were seen as being more loyal. So contrary to this story of wholesale Pashtun dominance over everyone else, I would say that Qizilbash in Kabul in the early 1800s was more influential and powerful than the Tanay Pashtun in Khost.
Yeah.
So yeah, but so that is the story. And are the Shia Twelvers and Nizaris more liberal in Afghanistan? I would say that yeah, I mean, from my experience, I would say, yeah, probably they're more in favor of secularism. But does that mean they're liberal, or does it mean that they are apprehensive about Sunni predominance in Afghanistan? That is a question I guess you'll have to answer for yourself. Um, so Michelle just gave us a $9.99 super chat. Thank you very much, Michelle. The topic of our live stream right now is a documentary, and this $9.99 is something that we use, and we hope that you will be proud of contributing to, and see the fruits of this donation. So thank you so much for that. Now let me go down and answer some more questions.
Yeah,
TA
questions
is
about the
saying,
documentary, because we're going too much into history while
okay,
the topic is a
okay,
documentary. So
okay, we'll answer this. I'll answer these in a quick bang. Sangad, we do have options. The NRF, the Say Atta Mohamed Noor movement, and those ladies movement from former government, if we like it or not, but they are options, right? You're right, they are options, but Sangad probably meant viable options, and we
realistic
don't really
options.
realistic options, and we don't really consider that to be to those to be viable options. But I mean, people can disagree with us and they're free to do so. But yeah, HSE is saying, in my experience as a consumer of documentaries, I think the best ones have a carefully demarcated question that is answered. Afghanistan has too many things to talk about. Are you finding it hard to limit yourself? We are, but we're also prioritizing what's most important, which is the humanitarian crisis that is currently prevailing. S.HTV, have you discussed the Taliban's mass murder of Salafi scholars like Ustad Mutawakkil in Kabul and other brothers, and will you document that? Our documentary is not going to be about that. We have discussed that in other live streams. However, it's been difficult to verify what's actually been happened in Eastern Afghanistan because of sort of the fake news that's been going on, but we are aware and we have discussed it, and I guess details will emerge. Lean Out the Ride is saying, any documentaries you guys are watching for inspiration? Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
I watch a lot of documentaries quite often. There are quite a good few documentaries that you can watch on Netflix. There are many good documentaries made by people who we actually know. There is a friend of mine. He's a Palestinian here in the Netherlands. His name is Sakar Khader, and he has produced amazing documentaries in Iraq, in Syria, in Palestine. He just came back from Gaza. He shot a documentary in the last couple of months there, and he is sort of my mentor. He is a very accomplished producer of documentaries from the Middle East, and I watch his documentaries for inspiration, but I watch also others. One of the most interesting documentaries about Afghanistan that I have ever seen is the one by Ben Anderson called "This Is What Winning Looks Like." have you seen that one?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
I haven't
So
seen
that was like incredible. This guy, he was in Helmand with all these militias and pro-government forces, and that was a very shocking and very revealing documentary. Ben Anderson did a great job. So yes, we watch a lot of documentaries. At least I do, stuff that inspires me.
Sure. When was Shiaism introduced into modern day Afghanistan, especially amongst the Pashtuns from the Hazara vis-a-vis Iran? I'd say it was probably earlier than that because Ismailis also had roots in Afghanistan about a millennium ago. So I would just say the proselytization. I'm not going to pretend to know that. I'm not going to pretend that I know how Turis became Shia. Biggie Man 52 is saying my audio was coming in choppy. Is that
Yes, he's right. And,
really?
and this is not a technical issue. This is a software issue we are having, because that's also the reason you had problems when you were interviewing Sippy.
Okay.
This is something that I have to solve, but don't worry, we will fix it.
Okay. Bilal Hassanzai said, where will you post the documentary?
Yeah, so about publishing the documentary, this is something that is currently in development. We have to consult with someone who is advising us on this matter. We have not made any specific decisions yet, but we will share everything, all the details with you guys as soon as we have made final decisions with that regard.
Okay. Vlad, up to this day, are the various ethno-linguistic groups. Man, Vlad, you really do have a lot of questions, but a lot of them
not
are
related to the documentary.
Related to the documentary. It's like he's like, I've got them now, so I'm going to ask all of the questions, but it's fine. I'll answer. So up to this day, are the various ethno-linguistic groups still at odds sometimes or have some form of mistrust? Do they belittle and mock each other? Are the Mongoloid people mocked for their looks? So I would say amongst various quarters, yeah, there's sort of mistrust or suspicion. I think you see it most visibly on Twitter. So I can't sit here and say, no, it doesn't exist at all, because like I said, it reveals itself on Twitter. And that is because I would say primarily either people have encountered bigotry or racism face to face, or they've been fed bigotry and racism in the form of their political leaders or the way they've been taught history. So yeah, it is something that exists, but to what extent is the question. I don't think that the average person of differing ethnicity sort of has some sort of mistrust or grudge against his fellow sort of Afghan. But
Yeah,
and he says,
something
are the
I
Mongoloid
wanted.
people Are the Mongoloid people mocked for their looks? I have to be honest and say, yeah, in Afghanistan there are different things for which different people are mocked, and it's sometimes racist and unpleasant, and sometimes it's more in a jokey, sort of sarcastic way. So, for example, I'm not going to mention the slurs against other ethnic groups, right? Because, but you know, Sangar, how they say "Akle Afghan Pasan,"
Yeah, yeah.
right? So it's a diss against Pashtuns. It's say the intellect or the logic of an Afghan, meaning a Pashtun, sort of arrives late. So basically, sort of you could say it's racist. You could say a light-hearted remark about Pashtuns being stereotyped as being emotional and prone to irrational decision making. So these sorts of things exist, and I guess it depends on the context in which it's very difficult to characterize a saying like "Akle Afghan Pasan" as emblematic of discrimination against Pashtuns. You know what I mean, Sangar? So, but yeah, these sorts of things do exist. Follow-up question from Muhammad Ammar Salim. Do you think Iran has as strong influence over Shia in Afghanistan as it does in Shias in Pakistan? No, I don't. I don't believe that. There is influence, but I don't believe it's to that level. Um, Biggie Man 52 is saying, I'm sorry, but when Sangyal breathe, it comes in very loud.
I have lowered the gain and I'm going to move
Okay.
the mic away from my mouth when I breathe. But you have to have some compassion with an elderly asthmatic man. Okay?
Okay, so you self-identify as a man. I'm glad that you managed to get that out of the way. So TA was not wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think those are the questions of the documentary answered. The Rais al-Wazara the Wainap Bariki Baswakuya Dulce Khatamko.
Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so since you guys aren't asking too many questions about the documentary, shame
I mean, to be
because
fair, they did, but there are some culprits who thought,
yeah,
you know what? Now that they're looking at the live chat, I'm going to answer all of the questions they didn't
yeah,
answer the other times, which
yeah.
is
So
fair. I get it.
so aside from the documentary, there are some developments in Afghanistan. There is some news. So we will briefly discuss the news, especially stuff that we have been monitoring today. There was a question about the documentary that we forgot to answer. Somebody asked, are you going to quit your daily jobs to do the documentary? No, we aren't. We are just going to take a short holiday whenever we have raised all the money and then go and shoot a documentary and come back and then continue doing our day-to-day jobs and then do live streams every now and then and maybe publish a few articles. And in the meanwhile, in the background, we will do the editing and production of the documentary. So if you guys have any more questions about the documentary, send us an email, info@afghaneye.org. We will answer your questions and we will also answer questions in our next live stream. So, Ahmed-waleed, today...
Wait, there's just a question. Yunus Ejazi, when was the last time you'd been to Afghanistan, Walid? Because you're well aware of the realities on the ground. One even comes to think you've been to school there. I guess I'll take that as a compliment. So the last time I went was in 2017. So yeah, other than that, I guess thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, and Yunus...
And two questions on what are your daily jobs and what is your day-to-day job. That is not really the topic of the discussion, but yeah.
Yunus, the thing is that while we may not be living in Afghanistan, we have sources around the country. We have been monitoring the news development in Afghanistan on day-to-day basis. We consume news and reports from Afghanistan like we consume oxygen, and that's why we know things. It's not because we've spent time there. we have spent some time there. And for speaking of myself, like I have been in contact with Afghans in the Netherlands and in the UK. I've been translating for Afghan refugees for the past decade. So Waleed is fluent in Dari and Pashto while he's not even born in Afghanistan. He reads Pashto and Dari books. The same thing applies to me. I went only to the third class in Afghanistan. So when I was 9, I couldn't go to school anymore because the regime collapsed. But I'm sort of literate in both Dari and Pashto because that's what we do. We may not be in Afghanistan, but we constantly consume information about Afghans and Afghanistan, and that's why we know things. Yeah.
Oh, so we've actually got a super chat from Vlad, who's saying thank you for the answers. Greeting from Eastern Europe. We're very glad to give you answers.
In Romania, per l'este româneste.
So
Vlad the Impaler.
I'm glad we're able to answer your questions, Vlad, even if they're not on our relationship statuses or anything of the sort. But yeah, TA is saying, are your sources reliable? How sure can you be about that? Pretty sure. Pretty sure. That's all I'll say. The recent speech from the Prime Minister, can you guys offer a translation of it into English? We cannot because it's 30 minutes long. However, we will discuss it. I was saying that for WhatsApp kimi agad وزير خارجه آقا واینامیم در واسطه ولا که آقای رقم کیجی که آقا پلی که آقا تقریبا یا ترجمه ورکو بده اجتا بدوهی که در ناس تجسوه دام اهمیت لري.
Saida. Okay, let me get. I will do that. Do you answer the questions and I will get that?
Yeah. Okay. Mohammed Shah is asking, do you plan on interviewing any of the Taliban officials for your documentary? For the time being, no. The Taliban is not the focus of the documentary. On YouTube, you have all those news, 100 days of the Taliban, and speak all the right, all the wrong. My question is, from these 100 days, is there any good news? You asked the perfect question, because if you go to our previous live stream, we evaluated the first 100 days of the Taliban. So maybe after this live stream is over, I can't, your name is sort of a conglomeration of letters, so I can't really pronounce it, but X, if you want to see a more sort of comprehensive perspective on the first 100 days, then yeah, our previous live stream was about that. This can be prolonged to Western love for federalism, while in Afghanistan, federalism is unthinkable as ethnocentricists are busy to claim power and money. Yeah, I guess that's not a question, that's a statement, and I somewhat agree with that statement. The interview has been published. Obaidat Ar-Rahman is saying, I joined first time and I'm really enjoying your podcast. Thank you, Obaidat Ar-Rahman. I'm glad that you discovered us, and I hope you stay with us for the journey and join our AFGHANEYE community. TA is asking, what is your opinion about the restrictions of the Taliban on girls' education? Idiotic is my opinion, because if it's assumed that there's some sort of Islamic problem with this, all right, fine, but you could be transparent about it, especially when the girls' schools are being opened sort of at an incremental level. There are irregularities when it comes to provinces. So what I want to know is, and I guess what others want to know is, what is the criterion by which it's decided on a provincial basis that schools are opened, right? So is it a financial issue? Because if it's financial, I understand. Is it a religious issue? I don't think so, because your religious scholars are also saying we don't mind women being judges and so on and so forth. So what is the actual issue? And that is what I don't know. Will the documentary be in English only or any other languages too? I believe the documentary will actually be primarily in Pashto and Dari, with English bits in it and subtitled accordingly. Um, Lean Out the Ride is saying, have you contacted Vice News? They make excellent documentaries. Maybe you guys could take a consultant job with their investment. Maybe we haven't really thought about it, but you know, we're also very keen on preserving our own independence as the Afghan eye. Um, Elmo is saying, not related to the documentary, but podcast. Can you do one on the myths and realities of the first Taliban regime? Yeah, we probably could, but you're going to get us in some trouble and get us called some names for it. But that's not something that we are, unaccustomed to. We get called names for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So yeah, inshallah, when things have calmed down, maybe we should sort of do it and compare and contrast it to the current government of theirs. Um, Anytime Twitter talks about the NRF, ethno nationalism, girls schools opening in Zabul, or the right way to be a Muslim, someone just wants to deflect attention from the bigger issues going on. I don't really follow, but I guess it's not a question but a statement. Do you think if in 2003, 2002, the transitional government would have brought back King Zayed Shah and established a federal kingdom, then things would have been better till the present? So the thing with federalism or federal kingdoms is that Afghanistan was de facto federal for a large part of the last 20 years. It was just that the illegal functions of government or just illegal operations were federalized. The central government itself was actually very weak. So the what was legal was the central government's prerogative, which it could not deliver, right? Partly because it was paralyzed by local strongmen. So I don't really believe that it would have necessarily been as different. Maybe the constitution of the political setup, yeah, perhaps, but um, I don't really follow. Um, what's your opinion about the forced displacement of hundreds of thousands, especially in these cold months in Afghanistan by the Taliban? So these forced displacements, I don't actually have enough um, information about because you know, there was there's a bit of an ethnic aspect to this as well. So a couple of families, or quite a few families, were displaced in Daikundi, but then they've also been displaced in Kandahar, and now we're hearing in Jozjan, and so on and so forth. So I don't really know what the background story to this is. I've heard that these people had basically the houses or the lands had been usurped 20 years earlier, and now the Taliban were retaking the land. But I don't really buy that explanation either. But really and truly, I don't really know what's going on. But any forced displacement is something that I'm not a fan of.
Okay,
Lena the Right is
just one
asking,
second.
how long will
Let
yes?
me test. I want to see if. Okay, carry on, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll answer this round of questions. So, how long will the documentary be? Multiple parts? That is yet to be determined. Bilal Hassan say, what is your view on the NRF and other parties opposing the Taliban? I'm not going to answer that here because we've discussed that at length. If you go to our previous live streams, I've even written an article on it. The short story is that I think they're frauds, and they're frauds that have failed their test in government multiple times. Faisal Masid is asking, why do most non-Pashtuns hate Pashtuns? Why can you guys in Afghanistan not get along? I don't think most non-Pashtuns hate Pashtuns. Unless you're on Twitter, then yeah, of course, that's what you're going to think because the lower rungs of any society tend to be the loudest on there. Why can you guys in Afghanistan not get along? I mean, I'm getting along with everyone. I'm vibing. You don't see me not getting along with people. I'm chilling, bro. But I
Yeah.
would say on a serious level, this is something. This is the result of 40 years social fragmentation in which ethnicity has been used and weaponized uh, by different politicians to attain certain goals. But at the face value, I dispute your assertion that Afghans can't get along. Um, Faisal Masih is saying, trust me, they spew a lot of hate. I know I get sent a lot of these tweets, but I just tend to ignore it because what you give attention to, you give importance to. And some people don't really deserve that importance. Finally, Vlad is saying, truth be told, Waleed, at first I thought that you guys were a bit pro-Taliban, but I realized that I was stupid. You care about the people more than anything else. That's a heartwarming statement, especially with one of the things that we're called. But yes, I get.
Yeah, so we have a problem with the audio. It's not playing, and it has to do with the format. So it needs to be uploaded first in either on YouTube or some other platform, and then I can play it. But
should I just play it from my phone on WhatsApp?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Let's
might
do
as
it.
well, right? You
Yes.
can't get any worse than that.
Yes.
Okay, so
تیرې دوه ورځې مو اروپایي ټولنې سره مفصلې خبرې درلودې په سیاسي موضوعاتو باندې تفصیلي خبرې درلودې همدارنګه په تعلیم.
So this is the foreign minister of Afghanistan, the man who's pictured, saying that for the last 2 days we've had detailed discussions with the European Union. We spoke about the political situation in Afghanistan, education, general health, and the distribution, transparency, and increasing of humanitarian aid. And the security of foreign embassies and organizations in Kabul. On these issues, we had very deep and detailed discussions. Good decisions were made for further improvement of relations. And through these discussions, it was good because we understood and empathized with each other's concerns and thoughts. And to plan for the future. In these discussions, those who were present were the ministers of education and health, the director of the central bank. They all spoke on their related fields. And we reached an agreement on the increasing of humanitarian aid and the opening of the offices of the European Union. And we reached an agreement that we will continue to hold similar discussions in the future. And at the end of this summit, we had trilateral meetings, which included the special representative of the state of Qatar and the representative of the Islamic Emirate was there. And in that discussion, beneficial discussions were held, which, God willing, will have positive effects. I'm not a bad translator, but yeah. So those are the.
I think you just found a new job, doing.
Yeah, probably.
Simultaneous translating.
So that was essentially the speech of the gentleman that you're seeing on the YouTube screen, the Foreign Minister Mawlawi Amir Khan Muttaqi, talking about his meetings for the last 2 days with his European counterparts. in which they discussed the security of foreign embassies and organizations in Kabul, the increasing of humanitarian aid, political situation in Afghanistan, and speaking of general health, in which the Minister of Health was also present. So, positive news, Sangat, right?
Yes, because European nation states, to be specific, Germany, the Netherlands, they are recognizing the current government as a de facto government of Afghanistan, but not de jure. So this is like sort of an official recognition of the state, and the fact that they want to secure their embassies and make sure that they can reopen their embassies. This all indicates that the European Union is moving towards a sort of normalization of relationship with the government of Afghanistan. And in my opinion, this is something that is... I didn't expect this to happen this soon, okay? Because it's only been 3 months, but it's happening, which is quite a relief, in my opinion, because this means that Afghanistan will have diplomatic relations with countries where we reside. Like here, I'm in the Netherlands. And if my home country has the diplomatic relations with the Netherlands, there is so much I can do for Afghanistan. You know, we have all these great possibilities here in this country, like in health, education, all these different sectors. And we can have some sort of cooperation, development work for the future of Afghanistan. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of donations. We don't have to have that, but maybe investment. We have all these major companies here, based here in the Netherlands, who could potentially go and invest in Afghanistan. And if the economy in Afghanistan starts to flourishing, a flourishing economy will consequently lead to jobs. When people have jobs and then a stable income, they can send their children to school. If their children are educated, slowly but surely the situation in Afghanistan is going to improve. And for all of that, you need this kind of state recognition and cooperation, and the fact that the European Union is now meeting the current government in Afghanistan for the second time in a very short period, because first meeting in Doha was, I think, 2 months ago.
A month and a half ago, yeah.
Yes, and then the German representatives and Dutch representatives, they traveled to Kabul 2 weeks ago. And now this, so it's starting to look like the situation is normalizing, and the relationship between the European Union and Afghanistan is becoming more, sort of official relationship between them. And I must say I'm relieved. I feel some sort of, confidence. And how about you? How do you feel about this development? I know you guys are no longer part of Europe, UK, you are...
Well, I mean, to be fair, the Prime Minister's special representative also traveled to Kabul. And you have Sir General Nick Carter, who's the chief of the army
sympathizer.
Staff, who's a Taliban sympathizer, who's a fascist, who's also calling for engagement with the Taliban. So it's good news, but... on the side note, I think, ironically, the biggest winner from all of this is Qatar, because it just, really boosts their diplomatic sort of muscle. But it's good news. I believe the European Union did call on the Taliban to form an inclusive government, which I'm not going to go into my stance on. In fact, Sangar, before the fall of Kabul, I remember I was on the BBC, right, radio, and I was like, look, now we need to negotiate to make sure that one party does not monopolize all power. So I've got the receipts. Before Kabul fell, I was like, look, negotiate. We don't want one party monopolizing power, right? I said it on British Broadcasting Corporation. But when the previous regime fell and the only alternatives are, like someone else mentioned, Atar Nur and the NRF, then I don't really want inclusivity. I think the status quo, as bad as it is better than that. But yeah, I mean, still, the European Union can call for all of that stuff. The Taliban are not going to listen, but as long as they're engaging with each other, there's still room for more. JZ is asking if we saw his super chat. There we go.
Okay.
JZ, $4.99. Thank you very much, JZ. Salamuna. Glad that you guys are back. Before we have the documentary, can we have a Musa Shafiq documentary? Also, when you guys go to Afghanistan, let Sangar drive to Panjshir. With regard to a documentary on Musa Shafiq, I'm not sure we'll be able to do that. Podcast,
Yes,
I know you have
maybe.
requested it. We will get to it eventually, I promise. There's a lot of stuff that we need to get to. And let Sangar, you know what, Sangar, if we have the time, maybe we will go to Panjshir. It's not on the bucket list for now, but that's fine. TA is saying, I definitely agree with Vlad.
We will go to Panjshir and then swim in the sea, because someone on Twitter claims that there is a sea there.
In Panjshir, yes. Or go on a Pakistani submarine in the sea in Panjshir, even better. But TA is saying, I definitely agree with Vlad. I may have misjudged you, Waleed. You're more objective than I thought. Man, I keep telling you guys, but so, I mean, maybe it's not you guys, but I could quite literally write on Twitter that I'm hungry, and someone will find a way to insult me or my family for it. So I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad that you see that. Anonymous is saying, can you minimize the Taliban's picture on the screen, please? I'm sorry that you didn't like the picture of the foreign minister. Maybe next time we'll find a better one. Amjad Yusuf is saying, what do you think about the Taliban's open letter to the US? Couldn't someone view this as the Taliban selling out a bit? I mean, for all of their faults, I don't think so, because they're just asking for the release of the money of Afghans.
Yeah.
Criteria Good Manners is saying ahmed-waleed is the new Abdul Qahar. No, I'm not. Right? I'm not a government spokesperson. I am independent, and together with Sangar, we head the AFGHANEYE. Bilal Hassan say, okay, so I've answered that. It is really terrible that NRF supporters are literally campaigning against the Afghan fronts being unfrozen. Yeah, I know, but I'm not really going to get into the level of morality or integrity that some people have.
And something that you guys need to be aware of, you see, we are a very small platform. We write articles occasionally. We do these live streams. We have the podcast, and we are now going to make a documentary. So we are very small, but those people you see on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, they're also very small. They may seem like they represent a large segment of the Afghan society, but they don't. If you watch Afghan media based in Afghanistan, if you watch all these independent YouTubers in Afghanistan, they are receiving loads and loads of donations from Afghans who live in Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, all around the world. People send money to help people. Most people in the diaspora and people in Afghanistan are concerned with real problems. So what you see on social media, all these people creating this cacophony of all the noise and nonsense, that's not the reality. And the reality is much more balanced. There are actually a lot of people who are seriously trying to do something about the current situation, the financial crisis, the economic crisis, the famine, people starving. Those are the things that most Afghans are concerned about. So you guys also need to start letting go of this all these trolls and haters online because they're insignificant.
Let me tell you this, and I know Faisal Masid sort of asked, why can't you guys get along and why do you all hate each other? I speak to my relatives in Afghanistan every single day, okay? Do you want to know how many times the NRF has been mentioned? None. It's not even the afterthought of an afterthought. You need to get out of Twitter, right? because most people in Afghanistan, their literacy rate in Afghanistan is low. Most people don't have internet. If they have internet, they're not going to be on Twitter. If they're on Twitter, they're probably not tweeting in English. The number of people from Afghanistan tweeting in English come from a very small bracket of society, right? Now, it is from that very small bracket of society that my relatives come, who know English, who've been educated, who live in Kabul. In that small bracket of society, the NRF is not even the afterthought of an afterthought, right? This discussion about, I got called a lot of names, Sangar, because I made this tweet about people who don't like Islamic law basically hiding behind anti-Pashtun prejudice. And everyone was like, look at this fascist. He's saying that Pashtunwala and Islam is the same thing, right? But away from this stuff, right? Away from this stuff doesn't really exist on the ground level at Afghanistan. People don't know that some Hazara kid and a Pashtun kid are calling each other names on Twitter.
And
right?
Most importantly, we have Mohammed Amin Waizi, who is in Kabul.
Yeah.
We have Farhan Hotak, who is in Kabul. We have Wahid Rahim Dil, who is in Kabul. We have so many people. Abbasins Marialeh, who is in Kabul. Very active, prominent Afghans who are right now in Afghanistan. Okay? They speak English and local languages. When they observe what these diaspora Afghans are doing online, they are saying, what's wrong with these people?
They think we're lunatics.
Yeah. So there is this Hazara guy, Ali Temur Asghari. He's constantly berating Hazaras, like, what's wrong with you people? We have totally different problems in Afghanistan, and why are you talking about all this nonsense? This is the reality. People who are in Afghanistan, who are fluent in English, when they go online and they see all of this, they're like, what the hell? Like what's this? Because people in Afghanistan have totally different concerns. They have totally different issues. So it's very sad that these people are so loud, but they are not a true representation of Afghan society, Afghans in general. So, this is also one of the reasons why we don't engage those people. Because otherwise we will be we talk about real issues, real development in Afghanistan, real political, social, economic development, historic facts. Those are the things that we focus on. We can easily go and engage with these people and waste all our time and energy with them. We can do that, but what's the point? Who's benefiting from that? Nobody.
Certainly not me, yeah. And that is the thing. And this isn't to say, there are not real issues in Afghanistan. Someone mentioned earlier, I told them about our live streams on the NRF and all of these things. And we sort of went line by line, dissecting their narrative, their talking points, what it means. So it's not to say that but if we're talking about trolls on Twitter calling me a tribal monkey, no, honestly, no, man. That's really not me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I said, we dissected all of Ahmad Massoud's talking points, right? Going from his article in the Washington Post, the New York Times. We did all of that. But like I said, if it's a guy calling me, I don't know, a caveman, what, do you really think I'm going to sit there discussing with them, right? So you need to, coming back to Faisal Masid, you need to get out of that, man. So, but let's go back to the Heat Show donated $5 in a super chat. Thank you. Asks Sangar, I think you may have some expertise in this. Is Afghanistan the same as Somalia in that there are tribal differences, and then the additional factor of Al Qaeda linked Al Shabaab, who saw motivation? Is Afghanistan similar to Somalia?
Yes and no. Okay, because Somalis are all one ethnic group. There are Bantus who are considered non-Somali by origin, but generally most Somali tribes speak the same language and they are part of the same tribe, same ethnic group. Even on the other side of the border that is not recognized by the Somalis in Ogaden in Ethiopia, the people of Ogaden are also ethnic Somalis. And likewise in northern Kenya, on the other side of the border, there are ethnic Somalis. So they all speak the same language. They are all basically the same ethnicity, but they are different tribes like Pashtuns, okay? So you have Pashtuns on the other side of the Durand line and on this side of the Durand line.
Has to be mentioned. Pashtuns aren't the only tribal group in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Hazaras are tribal.
Yes. Turkmens, Kazakhs,
Uzbek.
Kyrgyz, Uzbek.
Yeah, so this is just for everyone's information. Places like, let's say, Daikundi, they're named after Hazara tribes. Daikundi, Daizangi, Sheikh Ali.
Yeah.
These are all different Hazara groupings. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I cut your point, Sangia.
So these tribes in Somalia, they have tribal conflict among them because one tribe had more power at a certain point in history and they oppressed the others, like Siad Barre, the communist dictator in Somalia. He was from the Darod tribe, and when he tried to suppress his opposition, he went after everyone and he allegedly killed 100,000 members of the Isaac tribe, who are now the Isaac tribe is where the region is now called Somaliland. So that's why people from Somaliland, they hate the Darod, and Somalilanders, they don't consider themselves as Somalis but as Somalilanders. So you have all these issues, but it's all within one ethnic group. But in Afghanistan, that's not the case. In Afghanistan, first of all, the conflict has become ethnicized in the last 30 years. Okay? And this is a result of the failure of the secular liberal nationalist movement that was an outcome of the Marxist movement in Afghanistan. Those people, they have tried to ethnicize conflict and pit different ethnic groups with different language, different sort of their own cultural differences against each other, and portray the situation in Afghanistan as a conflict between different ethnic groups who are at each other's throat, which is not true. There are problems. The
root is ideological.
Yes, there is inequality there. Like for instance, there is inequality in Afghanistan. There is an oppressed Pashtun tribe, while there is a Pashtun president, but he's from a different tribe. So there is a oppressed Hazara community who are also Shia, but then there is a Hazara prime minister. Vice president. So it's not like the whole situation can be explained just by saying, okay, it's a conflict between ethnic groups. No, it's a conflict between different interest groups, people with power who exploit the matter of ethnicity to pitch people against each other. But even that is not at a level like every day-to-day Afghans. They don't even care much about, okay, he's from that ethnicity, he's from that ethnicity. You would be shocked to find out how many Afghans intermarry. People from different ethnic groups. I am from a mixed family. I'm half Tajik, half Pashtun.
I'm a tribal inbred.
You're from all sides, Kakar, one tribe. But most Afghans are mixed in many ways. Like there is some Hazara blood in me, some Tajik, Pashtun. So I'm a mixture of different communities in Afghanistan, and I'm not unique. Like most Afghans I interact with in Afghanistan or outside Afghanistan, they are some sort of a mixture of different ethnic groups, and that's because when you live in a multi-ethnic society where most people adhere to the same religion and generally have similar values, they will intermarry. That's the consequence. So when they will intermarry, they will become part of one community. So that's why Afghanistan, despite all its differences in different ethnic groups and different languages, they're still some sort of united as one community that has issues with one another. The issues, they have conflict, there are problems. Like, for instance, you mentioned earlier, somebody asked about people being displaced in Jawzjan, people being displaced in Daikundi. These issues happen. Those are actual problems in Afghanistan. But does that mean that the entire conflict of the last 4 decades was just about ethnicity? Absolutely not.
You know, this sort of, for everyone that is listening, this sort of rationalization and putting into context the multi-variate overlapping layers of the conflict, this is what gets us called fascists, because we don't believe that the whole thing is based on ethnicity. But yeah, that is essentially your answer. So Yunus Hijazi has donated 10 euros saying, thank you. TA says the people that you just named, Sangat, are definitely extremely bright, but some of them are also very biased, to be honest. You should find some pro-NRF sources or die-hard anti-Taliban sources to balance. You're right, we should, but pro-NRF sources, and I say this with a serious face, they're all too busy calling us names. There's been no mutual respect there.
Yeah. You see, you can interact with people who disagree with you, but they
without
need to
assuming that they're the scum of the earth. It's possible, trust
Yes.
me. Sangat and I disagree on loads of things. There's a mutual level of respect. Unfortunately, some people don't have that. Yunus Hijazi is saying there would be 71 ethnicities in total if one were to further categorize them in subcategories. You're right, Yunus. I think he's referring to me, referring to Hazara subgroups. I'm not saying that they're not Hazara. I'm just saying that contrary to popular sort of ideas, Pashtuns are not the only sort of patriarchally organized tribal groups where your tribal origin is derived from patrilineal descent. Gave Hazaras as an example, but Baloch as well are a tribal group. They exist in Afghanistan, Uzbek, Turkmen, and so on and so forth. From what I heard, so the history of guys, I'm not really gonna get into specifics about who on Twitter does what, but yes, and
Waleed, what's going on? You're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, but
Can you hear me?
yes, I can.
مال ختم بکنه در رئیس الوزراء خبری که وس مطرح
آقا
کنه
was okay. This is my favorite sunglasses. This is how I'm going to travel around Afghanistan in order to not get in any trouble, so that nobody recognizes me.
The Heat Show is saying tribalism. So tribalism is not the problem. No, tribalism does exist, but what we're saying is that the blowing ethnicity and tribal sort of differences out of proportion and basically attributing the whole conflict to that is simplistic. And there's also another more insidious sort of reason why that happens. You see, you know, the intention behind framing everything as ethnic or tribal in Afghanistan, there are two principal motivations. One of them is that it makes it very easy to rationalize Afghanistan to a non-Afghan, unacquainted audience, right? So if you say this ethnic group has ruled that ethnic group, and together they sort of bullied another ethnic group, right? That makes it generally easier to understand the society. It also brushes over a lot of the finer nuances.
And this
But
is
the other reason, well, let me just finish this point. The other reason is that by portraying all of these differences as non-ideological and solely ethnic, you're basically portraying the inhabitants of that country as little more than monkeys who are incapable of disagreeing with each other over values, ideas, and principles. You see, because what you're doing is you're saying the only thing that these people disagree on is power and which group wields power. Whereas we know that there's a very strong ideological facet to this, right? So by doing that, you're dehumanizing people, because what makes us human beings, it's our intellect, our cognitive ability to rationalize and make sense of things. But if you strip us from that, then we sort of almost become dehumanized. You see?
yes.
So when people say that the ideologies change all the time, and this is what prominent American diplomats have said in books, right? Different ideologies are weaponized, but the conflict is always tribal and whatever. Not only is it wrong, but like I said, what is the difference between us and monkeys if that's the case, right?
And
Sorry to any monkeys that are watching.
Yeah, and one important point is that you see, guys, your audience, our audience, you might have noticed that we are very critical of the left, okay? Of the progressive movements in Western countries, but also in Afghanistan. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't believe in equality and that we don't believe in justice and that we don't believe in inclusivity and diversity and respecting women's rights, etc. We believe in all of that, but on our terms as Muslims, and which means that the biggest problems we have with a sort of leftist view of Afghanistan is to see everything as either a class struggle or an ethnic struggle. And this problem in Afghanistan, but in other countries, former colonies of Western countries, is everywhere. It comes from the left. The progressive leftists, they use the Marxist analysis of the problems in society. Karl Marx said that the humanity is in perpetual, class struggle. The oppressor class will oppress the oppressed, and then the oppressed will rise in a revolution, and there will be a tyranny of the proletariat. That idea is adopted by people and then translated into ethnicity. It's blacks against whites, it's women against men.
I mean, the Setamis grew out of the Communist Party.
Exactly. And the Khalqis, who are now all Pashtun fascists with their mustaches, and they are also, they were communists. So the problem in Afghanistan is that a lot of conflict where they pitch people against each other based on their differences, and this is not just in Afghanistan but also in other countries, it comes from the left. Now, that doesn't mean that all ideas and all beliefs on everything that the left stands for is wrong. They have many good points, like when they advocate for inclusivity. I wholeheartedly support that. When they advocate for more diversity, I support that. When they say that women should be allowed to study, I support that. But what I'm against is constantly pitching people against each other and creating this situation like this class or this ethnicity or this gender or this is the enemy and the other is the victim, and they should always be seen as such. That doesn't make sense.
I got in a bit of a, I don't want to say a dispute. Yunus Ejazi, I think, is watching this as well. So you remember, so a while back, Ustad Faizullah Jalal, Kabul University professor, was on to law. And he was basically, so he called the Taliban spokesperson in Qatar a baby cow, a calf, right, which is obviously not very academic. He obviously spoke at a higher volume, and Yunus Ejazi, I know you're watching this, just hear me out, okay? So he spoke at a very high volume. He was basically shouting. And then in the end, he basically told the Taliban spokesperson that the only reason you're here is that Ghani brought you here because you're both Pashtun and it's a Pashtun conspiracy, right? So I responded. So listen. So I responded in Pashto, right? Now what happened is that in my my Pashto writing, Google Translate didn't pick up the whole thing properly. Okay, so I got loads of people in my quote tweets calling names and whatever, but they were also using this kind of leftist rhetoric where I'm the powerful man, right? Because I'm sat in the West. So I'm the powerful man, and Ustad Faisallah Jalal is a poor victim who's in Afghanistan. But here's the thing. What I said was that not only did he just scream his head off, he also revealed some sort of racism or whatever. Now, the racism bit didn't get translated into English by Google Pashto. So all it said is that I was expecting him to argue politely. He wasn't. What a shame. So everyone was like, oh, you're silencing him and he's oppressed and he's screaming, and you're just, instead of pointing out his screaming, you should be pointing out the injustice that put him there. And I'm like, look, bro, this guy is a PhD holder in political science and law. He's a lecturer. This guy's not a victim, right? Just because he's in Afghanistan.
People need to find out he's
educated.
People need to find out. Wait. People need to read his biography. Where did he work? What kind of jobs did he have? His wife was a candidate for the presidential elections in Afghanistan. And what's so funny is you see, he's entitled to say whatever he wants about the Taliban. Who cares? But he said, meaning we can't even understand people here anymore. Brother, in 2005, when I went back to Afghanistan for the first time, a lot of my relatives, when they would enter the city, they would start talking to each other in Farsi because they were afraid of being persecuted. That was the standard in the last 20 years. In a city where they are originally from, like my family, a lot of Pashtuns who are from the east of Kabul, they have been part of that community for hundreds of years. But under this regime of the last 20 years, if you would go to an office, government or institutions, and you couldn't speak fluently in Dari, they wouldn't help you. If you would address a government official in Kabul, in your native Pashto language, they would say, shut up, this is the language of Pakistanis, get lost. That was the reason why a lot of these Pashto nationalists started supporting Ashraf Ghani. Okay? Those problems existed in Kabul. Did we ever see Mr. Jalal coming out, Mr. Academic, the lecturer at Kabul University, saying, people, we need to stop discriminating against people who speak Pashto in this country? And he never said that. But now suddenly he's worried that because there are too many Pashtuns in Kabul in power, that people will not understand what is being said. So
Yunus Hijazi is here, right? So he's saying, I agree, correlation doesn't infer causation, and his reductionist analysis on Pashtun transition was stupid, but I applaud him for standing up, even though it was rather uncouth what he said. I applaud him.
I agree. Now,
I'm not even talking about the Pashtun thing, right? I just said, but because my bit on racism or ta'assub wasn't translated, you got loads of these accounts saying this, basically I'm silencing a guy in Afghanistan. And I'm like, do you know this guy? Like, I'm not in the position to be bullying him. He's more educated than me, more influential than me. He's the one getting invited onto Tulor. I'm not. And on the basis of the opinion, right? On the basis of the opinion that he's articulated, I'm well within my right to criticize him. If we're talking about who's higher up the hierarchy, well, he's senior to me in age. I don't have a wife who was running for the presidential elections, and I'm not getting invited to law. In fact, I'm the one. I mean, I don't see myself as the victim in this scenario, but certainly the victim is not him. It's me, right? So, but the point is, in terms of leftist rhetoric here, yeah, I was the one that was the bully, the oppressor. But I'm gonna end the show, Sangar, with one last question, and it's from Vlad. During the communist era in Afghanistan, Hazaras and Farsiwans are the most supportive of the new revolutionary ideology. Why did the loyal Pakhtiyar Pashtuns become so pro-socialist state for a while? So I dispute that assertion. I think, generally speaking, that Pashtuns, in terms of the support base of the revolutionary ideology, I think that was pretty fairly distributed amongst the intelligentsia, amongst each ethnic group. But coming to why loyal Pakhtiyar Pashtuns were pro-socialism or communism, the reason for that is that it actually goes back to 1929 or 1930 rather, when Nadir Shah, or what was then Nadir Khan, took the throne of Kabul from Habibullah Kalakani. He relied on the support of Pashtun tribes from Paktia. Okay, they helped him, they brought him to the throne. And in exchange, many tribes were exempt from taxation and conscription. Okay, because the idea was you helped us get here, we helped you get here. And that status quo somewhat survived, where the tribes of Loya Paktia were sort of seen as kingmakers. I mean, after all, they lay just south of Kabul in a mountainous turf. They'd caused loads of problems for previous Mohammedzai monarchs. So, and then Zahir Shah's cousin, who was also his son-in-law, had a policy of positive discrimination in favor of the Pashtuns of Loya Paktia, not just because of mountain warrior strong and all of that stuff, but also because this was the status quo. They were privileged in that sense. Now, because the officers who would go on to get to the highest levels of the army were predominantly Pashtuns from Paktia, where did they start to become educated? The Soviet Union. And that is why even Ahmad Shah Massoud, I believe, said, and, you know, all of my reservations with Ahmad Shah Massoud aside, he wasn't entirely wrong in that. I mean, obviously, there were Khalqis elsewhere as well, but that is essentially a short story as to why so many Pashtuns from Loya Paktia, specifically within the army, became radicalized as communists. Now, I think we should wrap it up on that note, Sangev. We're just over 2 hours, although the first 15 minutes, as usual, we're just sort of preparing. But in any case, thank you very much to everyone that joined us today for this live stream, to everyone that asked questions about our documentary, which is our new project and goal. Thank you to everyone, of course, that donates the super chats. I pray, inshallah ta'ala, that we're able to utilize the money and provide or produce a documentary that you will also feel yourself part of and will also feel proud in having partaken in. Thank you to everyone that asked the questions, even the ones that were not specifically related to the documentary. Like I said, I think because yeah, because I think for a while we haven't actually answered questions from the live chat. I think today they were like, okay, let's, you know, we'll basically try today. I was going to crack a family joke, but no one's going to get it, so it's okay. But yeah, guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm watching the like count, and it's nowhere near as high as the amount of people that are watching. So like the video, share it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And when I say share it, I mean share it on your social media accounts so that other people are able to find us just as you found us. And we indeed got someone who said that it's their first time watching and that they're really enjoying. And yeah, thank you very much, guys. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.